Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here for the morning session. The session is titled Interweaving Curiosity and Conflict, Integrating Artists Within Migrant Communities. My name is Emily Li Xingjie, and I will be moderating this session. Maybe I should introduce a bit myself first. So I'm a Taiwanese researcher and practitioner. I'm currently based in Amsterdam. And I'm very honored and excited also to moderate this panel because actually part of my own research interest is to actually look at how different forms and models of art residencies engage with contemporary social political issues, such as migration, environmental crises, social injustices, and geopolitical conflicts. And I'm really interested in seeing how actually art residency engage with these topics and how those interaction can tell us about our role in the art sector, but also how we can understand our world today. Another reason why I relate to this session very much is that over the past years, I have been working at Framer Frame. And Framer Frame is an art organization based in Amsterdam. And I've been coordinating a lot of residency programs with our team. And one of our communal space called Werkplaats Mollewijk is a place situated in the north of Amsterdam in a local neighborhood. And we have been initiating art residency projects there where selected artists will be working and living in the neighborhood and developing artistic projects together with the local residents. And through that process, I noticed that there's a lot of mutual learning and also understanding of how art practices and residency can influence not only the artist, but also the entire ecosystem around the neighborhood. I'm also involved in some of the collaborative projects with more international art residency in the Netherlands. For example, Rijksacademie, which is an art residency program where every year a lot of artists coming from all over the world will arrive to Amsterdam, and for their next 2 years they will be living in Amsterdam and developing their own artistic practice. So you could say the residency is also in itself a temporary migrant community where people with different cultural and artistic background come together. And there's a lot of interest in some of the participants also to enter into dialogue with the residents in Amsterdam. So this kind of interaction for me is also very interesting. And I feel that there's a need to really find different ways to document and assess and see how those interactions take place and how they allow us to understand not only the contemporary art world, but also the world that we are all situated in. So I suppose it's because of this experience working with artists and realizing the change both within the artistic community and also the community around us that I'm very happy that Rest Artist also is organizing this session where we will hear a lot of interesting projects shared by Yu-Lun, Hsiao-Ling, Oz, and Hoi about their experiences and what they encounter when they're organizing residency projects. Before we present their examples, maybe I would like to invite all of them to give a self-introduction and maybe start with Hoi.
Hello everyone, I'm Hoi. I'm the curator at the Chinese Culture Center of San Francisco. We're based in San Francisco's Chinatown. We're a 60-year-old art organization. I'm happy to be here.
Hello everyone, my name is Oz Malik and I'm from Australia. I'm also part of the Res Artists team. My background is mostly in international relations, and I run an arts collective in Melbourne called Way Over There Arts Collective. My area of interest is in the Muslim diaspora and the Muslim community in the West, and so my presentation will be looking at how art and the Muslim community interact in the West. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Hsiao-Ling, but you can also call me Sherry, and I'm an independent art manager and photographer based in Taipei and New Taipei City. And back to 2016 to 20, I was working for Bamboo Curtain Studio as residency manager and researcher, which was my introduction to the world of artist residency. And currently, I'm part of a few collectives focusing on art projects related to social issues, local culture, education, and environment. So it's my pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Fiona Yu-Lun, and I'm an independent art worker based in Taipei, Taiwan. I met Hsiao-Ling Sherry at Bamboo Curtain Studio a couple of years ago. At that time, I was a researcher there. Which was the beginning of my interest in social aesthetic or socially engaged art. And now I work as a writer, researcher, and curator in the field. Thank you.
Thank you for all your introductions. So now we will have a round of presentations. So each speakers will have around 10 minutes to present their projects, and then we will come together again for a conversation and also open up for the Q&A. So first, I would like to welcome Hoi to do the presentation, and please give a warm applause. Thank you.
Hello. Oh, did I press? Sorry, give us a moment. So my presentation is really going to be talking about 10 years of 41 Ross, which is an alleyway storefront space based in San Francisco, Chinatown. I only have 10 minutes, so I'll try to blitz through 10 years in 10 minutes. And I'm hoping the slides will work because it's a very kind of visual experience. Okay, so the Chinese Culture Center was founded in 1965. We are a extremely place-based organization. So the identity of our organization and the place of Chinatown is so interwoven that you cannot split us up. And in fact, I always attribute to the fact that I was raised as a curator through practicing in Chinatown. So if you were to plug me into a museum setting, I actually wouldn't know what to do. I don't curate objects, I curate people, time, and space. So a lot of the work that I do there has to really be responsive to the changing times. San Francisco Chinatown is a very unique neighborhood. It is in fact the oldest Chinatown in North America. It has historically been known as an immigrant gateway. It is home to immigrants, refugees, and all different diverse, marginalized, and oppressed communities call Chinatown their home. And so think about this as our audiences. And demographically, Chinatown has a lot of elders, and a lot of whom are monolingual Chinese speaking. So there's a language divide there. Also, there's a huge technology divide in terms of just understanding Chinatown, look at that. Also, just having a high poverty rate on English-speaking population, technology divide, as well as the lack of space. And it is also deeply vulnerable to gentrification. And for those who are interested in Chinatown, I encourage everybody to look up the International Hotel, which was a fight against displacement and gentrification back in the 70s. And it's really the root for a lot of the robust social services and housing services that emerged in Chinatown. So once you learn that story, I think you can take a lot of inspiration from it. So our center, as I mentioned, was actually one of the first art organization of color founded in the US. And in order to survive this long, we really have to be relevant through the times. And it's a very shaky, it's always very tough for arts organizations to survive for this long. About 15 years ago, we pivoted over to supporting contemporary artists, knowing that concepts of Chineseness and concepts of culture is always in flux and fluid. Today, we have exhibitions, artist residency programming, as well as walking tours. So we serve around 2,000 students per year doing a social justice and art walking tour in SF Chinatown. And so this is our location. I point this out because we're right at the cusp of Financial District and Chinatown, and we're located in a brutalist hotel building. So one can only imagine that while the pedestrian bridge that you see there is both a connector, it's also a divider in so many ways. So about 8 years ago, we really proactively went into the community, activating the parks, alleyways, subway stations, as well as the storefront space in Ross Alley called 41 Ross. So one remarkable thing about the founding of the space is that it was co-founded between CCC as an arts organization and a public housing organization. So that is really a bold and kind of radical first step in stating that whatever that's going to happen there, maybe there will be really crazy stuff that will happen there. Whatever that's going to happen there is not going to touch the bottom line, that is the affordability and the working class community that is Chinatown residents. And while the two organizations really didn't know what it will look like and what are the dynamics that it will unfold, hence why in the past 10 years is really a process of experimentation and learning how to work with each other and stretching with one another and really challenging each other's concepts and frameworks. And I have to say that some of our biggest, I would say, critics in the beginning became our biggest ally at the end of the day. And now art is actually fully embraced within SF Chinatown as a strategy to move forward as a community together. And that's Xutang Keyword School. That was the first project before 41 Ross became 41 Ross. And then here's the interior of it, and it used to be a tofu shop that became vacant. Actually, the tofu shop expanded, so the artists were able to move in. I wanted to pull this picture up because this example of one of the projects that we did, it was Infinite Cycle, and we did it in collaboration with Bamboo Curtain Studio and WMA Space in Hong Kong. And we've done exhibitions, workshops, parties, hot pots, karaokeing in the space. So think of it like a very fluid, multi-purpose space in the heart of Chinatown. For those who are interested, all the past projects is all on our website. So you can kind of see like maybe some project looks more collaborative, some are more like artist directed driven, some are more community organization driven, some might look like social services as well. So this is really all the everyday identity of what 41 Ross is about. So fast forward to 2020, it was the pandemic, and it was one of the most depressing times for Chinatown. Chinatown was deeply stigmatized for being, attributed to the cause of COVID, right? Chinese people were attributed to the cause of COVID, and Chinese Americans at that time were suffering from racist attacks. There's not a single day without repeated imageries of elders getting attacked on the streets, and there's a lot of hate messages that were just in the realms and in the air that we're living in. If you're an elder person in Chinatown, likely that you won't be going outside, so that was really increasing the sense of isolation for everyone that was living in Chinatown, which is already a very dense space, so there's a health crisis going on as well. So this was Ross Alley at the time, very empty, very depressing, and that boba shop across the street just opened. So the Artist in Residency initiative was really to address the trauma of the pandemic. We curated artists who are really about humor, joy, and quirk. It's actually a very hopeful set of artists that we curated in the first rounds. It is centered on social practice, meaning that it's really about the relationship and the people they meet, and then also the project or non-projects that develop through that. It's 45 or 100 days. We don't know the format quite well yet. We're still testing, and a lot of it has to do with budget as well. We have supported local and international artists. Format looks like, community orientation, public programming, open studio, artist-led programming, and just meeting a lot of people. One thing to note that CCC is about like an 8 to 10 person staff team. So we do have staff to support the artists throughout the program. And so working out a format where the administrator and artists can work together is something we think about a lot. So now I'll go through some of the actual inquiries that we have in the residency. So how do we orient artists in such a short amount of time? Chinatown is a very complex space with a lot of different people. So one of the things we do is we literally hold the artists' hands and then walk them into every single store and meet the neighbors, at least within the neighboring alley, so that they can support each other. So when they need help, they're not calling upon our staff, they're really calling on upon the store next door or their neighbors. And then the other thing is we give them a lot of tours, and we also introduce them to historians, social service organizations. So these are all the relationships that we have built in the past 10 years that the artists can now feel like that is their toolkits, that is their studio. And then, the second thing is people talk about the ideas of one-offs a lot, where artists come in and out. The community builds a lot of sense of hope about what to come afterward. Will there be continuity? So this is where the organization comes in. So we help broker relationship both before, during, and after each project. So each artist are able to build upon iterative, I think, benefits from the previous artists as well. And the artists from different cycles do sharing with each other. And we always check in with people that they have worked with and relationship that they have built, so that we're always assigning a staff to work with the artists to meet the people, so that it's not a relationship that's only sitting with the artist. And then how do we build safe space for risk-taking and mistakes? So this is a huge part, because I think when artists work with deeply vulnerable communities, there's always a sense of carefulness, which is great. I think they need to do that. At the same time, we want to also change their mindset a little bit and really let them know that the community has their own agency as well. They are welcome to disagree. They're welcome to engage with your work fully. And so we encourage the artists to be artists, and we encourage the community members to be community members, because we work with both sides, basically. So what are the dynamics that can unfold, and what are the tensions that might arise for generative dialogue? And at the end of the day, it's really building an environment where even if the artists make a mistake, they can rise above it, okay? Even if the artist makes a mistake, it's not going to be completely egregious and damaging to the community, because we have such a strong support system for them to test out different ideas. And the final point is artists empowering community, community empowering artists. So on the left is actually the boba shop owner showing off his mural to me just last week. And it turns out he's an artist, and he started borrowing paint from the artist residency. And then the image on the right is it's a plaza dance group, and they come to our exhibition. So one of the things that the artists are able to take away from the residency is that just precisely how their work resonates with everyday people, and how everyday people can really embrace their work. And initiatives beyond the residency is that 41 Ross provided a prototype for non-art organization to embrace art as a strategy. So now we're not fighting for, saying that art matters just by ourselves, but really we have allies in social services sectors that are fighting alongside us. So here it is. So thank you so much. This is the end of my presentation. I'm happy to talk more beyond this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hoi, for the very engaging presentation and perfect timing. Next, maybe we invite Fiona and Sherry, since your presentation is on the slide. Okay.
Morning, everyone. I'm Fiona. Our presentation title is Shop Windows, Kaleidoscope, and the Shadows of Love, and it will center on a residency project, which is actually part of a larger curatorial project and this residency project took place in the shopping mall in the Filipino districts of Taipei. The residency project, the curatorial project has a title called Not Just Love Stories, and it's actually a collective work. And there are 3 co-curators of Not Just Love Story, including me, Sherry, and another member Sally, who is actually a literary researcher and an NGO social worker. So like I said, the residency project is part of a 5-year research and curatorial initiative called Not Just Love Stories. And Not Just Love Stories took inspiration from the romance genre, which is significant for migrant literature in Taiwan, and emerged out of an awareness of a cultural significance of Southeast Asian migrant diasporic communities to Taiwan since the 90s, since the launch of the foreign labor policy at that time. So affectivity and migration have become our project keywords, and they refer not only to the politics of the affects of the migrant communities in Taiwan that are related to for love in general, but related to, for example, romantic relationships, marriage, childbirth, and child raising. The initiative also considered the affective registers of contemporary arts and the potential of art to creative alternative passage for cross-community and cross-cultural interactions from that is different from the existing social political agenda that generally focus on work or labor. So this slide shows you how the initiative Not Just Love Story actually evolved a lot and has many contents. And it includes a group exhibition that just happened early this year titled Elsewhere Within Now that took place in an art space and in the shopping mall that we did our residency in. And also 2 publications, including 1 short novel collection and 1 zine that is still in the progress of making, and the residency project in a 1-1 building that I'm going to share. So this is where how the mall looks like. It's called King 1-1 Shopping Mall, and the mall is a popular gathering spot for Filipino migrant workers on weekends, and it hosts a mix of import shops and services catering to migrant workers in Taiwan. For example, there are everyday essentials, beauty salon, and of course food stalls in the mall. And many shop owners are Filipino immigrants, and there are also Filipino migrant workers who run side business on their day off. So we often say among us, the curator team, we often say that the 1-1 building looks like a kaleidoscope for us, because the interior, the physical space of the mall actually reflects the migratory nature of the community, with a lot of cultural fusion, displays and moving objects, and traces of temporary settlements. But when we first arrived at the mall 3 years ago, we decided that we're gonna need a fixed space as our workstation, meaning that now we're in a shopping mall, then we're gonna turn ourselves into a shop owner too. And so throughout 3 years, we've actually stationed in 3 different shop fronts, and but our we're actually went way beyond the shop space. And one of the essential part of our work is to work with artists for the research and community engagement. And having in mind that the affective aspects is at the core of our exploration, we actually invited artists with different practices and discuss a lot and work collaboratively with them to develop different ways of working. I'll give you some images to show. So this is performance artist Liu Chunliang, and after some extensive research, she had developed a series of artistic actions that explore the idea of boundaries. On the left, you see the image is when she did an interactive performance in and around the mall, and blindfolded herself and speaking to random passerbys, "I love you." and she received a very different feedback from different people, of course. And on the right is, in the holiday season, she used our shop windows to create a snowy scene to be used by the community as a background for selfie or video calls with their family. And it's called Come and Experience the Fakest Snow in Christmas. This is done also because Chun Liang noticed that Korean drama is like very popular among this community, and yeah, so snow scene is also something that did not exist, but it's like familiar to these people. Also, this is the image of the performance of Chun Liang during our group exhibition. And visual artist Wu Meiqi was very much interested in the visual elements of the mall. And for her, these are not just symbols of economic transaction, but also carries emotional meanings. For example, a lot of migrant workers will come, do shoppings, and then buy stuff to send back home in the Philippines as gift for their families. And a lot of people actually come here not just for shopping, but also hang out with their fellow people from the home country. On the left, and so she also did some observation, and then she came up with a lot of spatial intervention in the malls. On the left is Meiqi threw a DJ event inviting a very young activist, Julia, to play love songs that she grew up listening from her mom's music player. On the right, she ran, working with the tattooist that she met in a shopping mall. She ran a one-day pop-up tattoo shop and designed tattoo based on the Tagalog novels that we actually together collect from the shopping mall. And this is also the work that Meiqi produced for our group exhibition Elsewhere Within Now early this year. And another artist like Wei Yu took a very different approach, meaning that she actually gave his artistic role to another Filipino artist. So she invited a Filipino jazz singer, Risa, and her band, and she actually threw a jazz concert in the shopping mall exclusively for the shop owners and the customers. And it was the first time that she ever performed for her fellow people in Taiwan. So rather than managing the residency as like an institution or facilitating the artist's project, we, the Curator team, actually work collaboratively with them to experiment what art can do in exploring community relationship. And Sherry will follow up by like introducing more what we do here.
So our team, along with the artists, has been exploring the space as residence. But however, even with a physical base, the 1-1 building still is a constantly changing field site to us. And people comes and go, and the shop keeps moving every week. The only thing that didn't change was that we have to pay rent and utilities with just like the others. And actually, this became a foundation for us to be part of a community. And 1-1 building is a commercial area, which means that there are a lot of transactions happen every week. And so when our neighbors pass by, they're always asking, what are you selling? So maybe we should sell something. But the give and take we saw in the 1-1 building is actually much more than just cash and products. Therefore, our community exploration is centered on the theme exchange. So in the early stage, we do the street interviews. We exchange flowers with people for people's view on love, their favorite love songs that could represent their life stories or their favorite dating spot in Taipei. And then we invite a few of them to join, be engaged in our more formal interviews, and we follow them onto a date. And in exchange with their love stories, we design, have a special design flower bouquet that for their love stories, and a set of couples photography. And in the following year, we design 5 types of cocktails based on the street interviews. And then we collect for in a pop-up events, we collect more stories that resonate on the title of the cocktails. Yeah, and actually the exchange itself became an entry point leading us to more unexpected relationship in the 1-1 building. And this is the most, one of the most unique relationship that we formed was with KK. She's a second generation Filipino Taiwanese, that her mother runs a massage shop next door. So she came and understand our project, and then she became a team member. So not only did she invite us to join the community activity, but also she began to lead a walking tour around that district to introduce our project and the culture around, Filipino culture around 1-1 building. So the 1-1 building base is also became a study co-learning area for our team. And we do the research on how other artists consider and present the migrant worker issue in their works, and also the migrant labor policies in Taiwan. And in the second year, we start to rethink our audience. So we decided to do more public events for people, to providing more opportunities for people to step into the 1-1 building. And such as we do the screening and the talk related to the migrant worker issue, pairing with the walking tour around that district. And also we do 2 exhibitions and to showcase the progress of the residency in the 1-1 building. And the first one is centered on the title of interstices, and you show the image and the poetic works for our fieldwork. And the second exhibition is connected to our project exhibition in the Freeze Art space, and it features a pop-up shop that also showcase more image and the writings that we collect in the past 2 years in the 1-1 building. So like currently we are piling up our experience in the 1-1 into a zine called Zine 1-1. And we plan to publish it at the end of September. So here are some of our reflection. So in the project, the greatest challenge for both us and the artists was actually psychological. That how can we address a migrant worker issue in artistic content without resorting to ideological appropriation, while still respecting the boundaries and being sensitive in the community. And so far, there isn't a perfect solution, but we must acknowledge and accept that our projects actually indeed rely on the intimacy, trust, and the labor of migrant workers to uncover many stories. And due to this ambiguity, actually the project progress really slow and understated. However, this also allows us more time to grow from various perspectives and explore the possibilities to co-create with the migrant worker identity within the project.
Yeah, maybe some final thoughts on the residency project is about how we think of the time scale of the residency project, and maybe of an art initiative, and the fact that the project is ongoing and open-ended. So like I said, we were independent workers and working on a socially conscious non-profit project. As a non-institution, it means that we rely heavily on public grants for our project, and a lot of times on our own income from other jobs. And so due to budget limits, since this summer we ceased to have a fixed space in the shopping mall. But the activities of not just love stories are still ongoing. And they've become more nomadic and organic. This open-endedness actually allows us to liberate ourselves from the so-called ideas of the obsessions of KPIs that a lot of people working in as art managers will find ourselves trapped in. And we now feel more freely about what can we bring to the project with our capacity. While our relationship with the community remain at very personal level and become part of our lives. So we're still on our way, but for now I would like to end the presentation with 3 images of what we've been doing after we left the mall. So this one is a concert that we threw for migrant worker band, rock bands in Taiwan for the audience of migrant workers. And this took place in Tainan, in southern Taiwan. And this is when we were invited to join the Bingo Pino gambling game that in our neighbor's shop in Wanwan. And this actually happened like every Sunday. And lastly, the Christmas party that we were invited to join with our neighbors. And this happened last year in the mall. So these wrap up our presentation for today. Please feel free to scan the QR code for more information, and we look forward to your feedback and comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona and Sherry, for the presentation. And last but not least, we invite Oath Malik to do his presentation. And maybe as a reminder, if you have any questions, feel free to scan the QR code on the right side, the Slido, to put in your questions. Or later on, you're also welcome to raise your hand at any moment if you would like to ask the presenters anything.
Thank you so much. So yeah, my topic, it's an interesting one, I think, because the Muslim community, especially in the West, but around the world, it's a significant community. It's a large community, and last time I checked, AI hasn't taken over, so human beings still attend our arts residencies. And so it's important that we have a deeper understanding of the people around us and who they are and what they believe in. And this topic is close to my heart. Growing up and as a Muslim, with a Muslim mother artist, art was celebrated in our house. But at the same time, understanding the taboos, the sacred, and the challenges as well was something that I learnt and I continue to learn. So this topic and the discussion of conflict and curiosity, it's a fascinating theme for this panel. Because I feel like a lot of migrant communities get seen in those 2 binaries, whether it's conflict or curiosity or the exoticization or oriental kind of mindset. So the Muslim community also does get seen in those 2 binaries, conflict and curiosity. And so hopefully through this presentation, though it's brief, we might have a deeper way of knowing and understanding. The picture on the left, I wanted to put that there just because of the region that we're in. That's a 15th century Chinese Quran written on Chinese golden paper, which I thought was quite interesting. So we probably have an understanding of Islamic art. We've probably seen it. We might have some elements of it in our house. But kind of historically, you've got the sacred gardens, the kind of quadrant style and design of the Islamic garden, calligraphy, the ceramic work, and patterns are also quite common historically. But what if, in terms of the way we understand art, rather than having the drive to consume art from our eye, we look through our heart? And that's kind of what Islamic art is. It's very connected deeply to religion, the spiritual, and the sacred. And so there's no binary of yes or no in the kind of way that we might see what is lacking, but we try to see the deeper understanding of how to get closer to the divine. And these kind of elements of Islamic art historically are always trying to get closer to the divine. In terms of the Muslim community in the West, they have started to implement these elements within their local. So for example, one of my favorite mosques is the Cambridge Mosque, which is this eco-mosque, and you can see the incredible pillars that are there in terms of the way that they kind of use elements of the natural. And I'll just read a bit about what the Cambridge Mosque is. So the octagonal geometry has strong symbolism in Islamic art, suggesting the cycle of inhalation, so the breath of the divine. So it's not just something that looks like a tree or something that is kind of nature, but when you walk in, you should feel the breath of the divine. And so when you're walking, before you pray, you're walking into this Islamic garden to have that first feeling before you sit down and have that God consciousness. And then you hopefully gradually fall into contemplation when you are praying. The combination of gardens with the whispering fountains and prayer spaces has been used to great effect throughout Islamic history. For instance, in Alhambra in Spain, and it reminds of the interconnectedness of humanness and the natural world. The gardens enhance the feeling of an oasis in the building as the whole embodies. Even the roofs are green. So this example I really like because historically arts residencies, you're kind of going away in nature, or these arts residencies that are in regional places. So when working with Muslim artists, this is something that naturally within our religion and within our faith is something that's very important to us. So being close to nature is the way that you get to know God. God is not something that is abstract, but you can see God through nature. In terms of other forms of art that we're seeing within the Muslim diaspora and the Muslim community is political art. So post 9/11, and especially through counterterrorism and countering violent extremist projects, a lot of pressure came on the Muslim community, especially through Islamophobia and how the Muslim community was securitized. So Muslim artists have pushed back at the idea of being securitized through political art and activism. This is a Sydney-based artist called Abdullah, and he uses his artwork to kind of show what people, how they might perceive him. And so these are some of his images, and he has been doing this sort of activism kind of artwork. And that's another thing to know about when maybe you're having an art residency, like how political work gets used. Sometimes we might have restrictions on what type of artwork can be seen, but this is something that is a trend in the Muslim diaspora in the West to kind of push back at Islamophobia or the injustices that they face within the community. So more just about the Muslim diaspora, the connection to their cultural backgrounds is deeply important. So their artwork will not just speak about their experiences of being a Western Muslim, but they might also look at their heritage, their cultural heritage. And that's a great way to connect to around the world and this global interconnectedness, because Muslim people in the West come from many different countries. In Australia, there's somewhat of like 150 countries that they come from and speak many different languages. So that opportunity to have a Western Muslim, but he has family in Africa or family in Asia or in Europe, you have that incredible diversity. Sometimes also with the Muslim diaspora community, you might have cultural concerns and certain things around migration. So we have issues around sometimes taboos and cultural topics. And again, this is something that might come up in arts residency programs to do with providing spaces, especially Muslims that are devout, pray 5 times a day, prayer spaces or something. Food options. In Taipei, it's incredible food, but I can't eat pork, unfortunately. So I've got a note that says I can't eat pork and I'm walking around. So I'm missing out on all the great pork dishes. But things like that are really important to note. One of the ways that the Muslim community sees art comes through the different schools that we have in the West. And sometimes, depending on the school, how conservative and liberal they are, that will change. So we're not a monolith community, and there's different diversity amongst the schools of thoughts. And at local high school level and even universities, you will see that some Muslim schools have a curricula that's very art heavy, and some that don't even have drama classes, music classes are even restricted, and even what you can paint sometimes changes. So you won't really see figures, and that's always been kind of a contentious thing within Islamic art. Also, political things sometimes are not spoken about as well. So depending on the Muslim country, especially the different Muslim majority countries around the world, sometimes political art as well can be challenging. So sometimes with local artists who are part of your residencies, going through the, privacy and checking if you can post their work, and checking in with them about even their faces and stuff like that. Again, sensitive information that is important to know. So beyond documentaries and news, this is one thing I've spoken to a lot of young Muslim people through my research, and one of the things that they talk about is whenever they see something that's abstract, they can't really comprehend it, because for the last 20 years they've seen themselves only on documentaries and on news stories or on breaking news. So for the Muslim diaspora to see themselves in some sort of abstract or impressionism or these sort of different art forms, it's quite hard and challenging. So these art residencies will provide an opportunity for young Muslim artists or other Muslim artists to kind of break that barrier and to go on this endeavor of dignity, which allows them to move the spectrum beyond documentaries and news. So thank you for listening to my presentation, and there are other examples out there of digital residencies that are there that help connect the Muslim diaspora with the wider global Muslim community, as well as Muslim collectives that are out there as well that can always help with information. So rather than knowing about a community, we can hopefully deeply understand them. Thank you.
Thank you, Us, for your presentation. So now we've concluded our presentation, and I see actually there's a lot of enthusiasm in the Slido. But of course, for me personally, I also feel that even though your presentations are quite different in terms of both the region that you are situated in, and also like the methodology and approach, and even like the form of residency that you're undertaking. For example, Hoi, you're working within an institution, and for Sherry and Fiona, you are self-initiating a residency project, which is actually part of a larger like curatorial undertaking. And for Oz, I think you really also share with us from personal perspective and also your own research interest how Muslim art and the Muslim diasporic art practices can help us also think about how residencies can be practiced, and what are the things that we should keep in mind when we host artists, and also like how we interact with the different communities. So I think there's a lot of range of topics that we can discuss. But maybe we can also look at the Slido now, maybe starting from the first question, and that is for Hoi, posed by Sylvia, who's asking, is there any conflict happened before while 41 Rows encouraging artists to be artists, community to be community? If so, how you mediate in between? And maybe also the second one, you mentioned the residents and the artists. This dichotomy is common and often useful. Does the work being produced ever complicate these definitions?
long story short, yes. I think the mediation happens actually before the artists even engage with the community. So this is what we mean by doing the wraparound work, so that when the artists introduce a topic to community members that might find it challenging, and I'm saying this in such broad general terms, we're literally talking to people down the streets, right? We're talking to like English as second language classes. We're talking to our neighbors, our shop owners. So these are the details of the people that we're talking to when we introduce a project into the community setting. So it's not just one conversation, it's numerous conversations. We're maybe handling around like 30 to 40 voices individually that root themselves in the community, people who live, play, work, and and patronize the community. So yes, of course, there will be topics that are difficult, but then that's why the residency is also iterative. We allow them to, hey, it's like maybe you disagree with this, and I can totally listen and hear you out and engage with you. The next artist is introducing these topics. What do you think? So it's a constant feedback loop, and I think that goes back to the dichotomy that I'm kind of projecting in my presentation as well. Yeah, it's blurry. It's really blurry. So I think for the sake of communicating with the panel setting here, I did oversimplify some of the terms, but we're talking about a lot of people and a lot of engagement in our outreach work, just to make sure that community feels safe and comfortable. Actually, discomfort is okay, but feel safe, right? At least community feels safe, and then the artist feels safe as well.
Yeah, I also agree on like some of the times it's easy to just present to the community and to the artists that this is the residents, this is the artist, but actually also from my own experience working with artists who lived for a period of time in the local neighborhood undertaking their residency project, for after that time, like they also feel they're part of the community and even like part of the residents, and also the community also feel that they have the agency to also make a comment or even like be part of an art project. So I think indeed like through time and working together, and I think building up trust that also Fiona and Sherry mentioned in the presentation is like very much crucial in the residency projects that you are also doing. And I see also there's an interest in looking into your curatorial program, and someone was asking, let me go back to, there was one interesting question where someone asked, how have you dealt with the consent from migrant workers of being researched, voiced, whose voices and stories are being curated and presented by curators and artists within your project? So maybe you can also elaborate on how you interact or discuss with the residents or the people there how you want to start this project and ask them to be part of it.
I think like the migrant workers who are engaged with into our projects, they have different roles. So the first one is people we met during the street interviews. So usually we get a consent just by asking, because it was actually the long journey. I mean, like we knock on each shop door, or we give our sheets to each people we meet in the 1-1 building, and we ask them, tell them what we are doing, what we want to ask, and get their consent. So we will ask, do you mind if your story will be posted on the Facebook, on our internet, or be in the exhibition? So this is a first stage. And then for more interviews or for more, for example, when we do a further interview, there's one migrant workers from Indonesia. She has a baby and she wants to share her story with baby, but actually because it's kind of there are some family issues. So she hoped that when we don't show her name, when we release the stories, and that happened a lot in our whole projects, including our artists' work. So usually our artists' work don't show any name of migrant workers' stories and in their story. Even it's include in the artwork, they won't show like any details of their personal information. I think that's a basic sensitivity for like running this kind of project. And then if the migrant workers are like participating in our project as an artist, then we will sign a contract. And yeah, I think that's it.
And then maybe this, Uz, you can contribute because there's a question about how do you approach cultural safety, exoticism, disguised as curiosity, and Eurocentrism when bringing together artists and migrant communities. So maybe you can speak specifically in terms of your research. How do you think we can?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, you know, the Muslim community in general, especially in the West, I was speaking about how it's been securitized. So in terms of that, what that means is, I know there's a lot of like government-funded arts residency projects, and that's great. Like government should help with projects, but it should be in the arts funding, right? It would be very strange if you had arts funding coming from the military or the arts funding coming from the intelligence service. So sadly, a lot of programs that are out there that have got the label of arts program come from like the Australian Defence Force or the Australian Intelligence Service, and they're programs used to, you know, they're art programs basically. So that's not good, and I think that's why like I keep emphasizing the point of arts residencies, because hopefully they bring that dignity to people, because it's kind of a bit separate from those sort of things. And again, political art, going on to that question as well, political art as well, you have to be very cautious of how that can be responded. In terms of exoticization and Orientalism, it's again a really good point. I think again, removing the sacred from Islamic art, that's where the problem can arise. There's a really funny joke that if people are familiar with Rumi, the great poet, the Sufi poet, that Rumi poetry isn't about your ex-girlfriend, it's about God. Because a lot of people, when they post about Rumi, it's always about, you know, love and some great thoughts, but it removes God away from the deeper knowledge of Rumi's poetry. So I think it's, yeah, acknowledging that aspect of Islamic art, but at the same time as well, there's a lot of Muslim artists who don't just want to be, I guess, preaching or talking about their religion. They also want to be doing other stuff. So this is just one example, obviously, but I'm sure there's much more knowledgeable people in the room about Orientalism and exoticization of art. But yeah, it is very central to this topic.
Thank you. And actually, you just mentioned something about funding, and also for me, what is really crucial when we're talking about residency in a long term and how to be more sustainable and to support a long-term commitment instead of just, you know, like going into a community and doing a project and then stepping out and leaving, is this the resources that are needed. And of course, Fiona, you mentioned about the romantic side maybe of being independent, that you're like liberated from this kind of responsibility towards a certain fund or a certain institution, but at the same time, to make it sustainable, how do you seek other support from different stakeholders, or how do you, you know, like balance your personal practices while also being able to achieve or continue the projects that you're doing together with the people there? Maybe you can elaborate that more. And also maybe for Hoi, you're in a different environment, working within an institution. There's also different challenges in, you know, like sustaining and securing fund to continue the work that you do. And how do you, yeah, make make the point to those funding bodies that this is really an important work that you need to do as a long-term thing.
Funding-wise, yeah, it is something that we reflect a lot and are still figuring out. For the currently, most of the budgets of our project remain like from public funding, and we technically apply for different grants from different ministerial department. And then, but after, because we've been doing this for 5 years for the entire curatorial project, and we, especially after the exhibition this year, we started to receive a lot of feedback. Interestingly, mostly from non-art sectors. So we got a lot of invitation of collaboration from NGOs, from universities, and other sectors like non-art sectors. So that's why I said we're now running in a more like nomadic, not necessarily romantic. It's not a romantic at all, but nomadic. And so yeah, this is how we're doing now. One thing I think we haven't tried is to reach out to like the business sectors to seek for corporate sponsorship. And we've talked about this, but we have not really put it into practice. So maybe some of you may give us some suggestions after this, but thank you.
To quickly chime in, I think our desire is to do long-term community projects, but the reality of the funding is year-to-year, project-to-project. So how can we bend and these funding sources to make sure that the mission, our mission is met, and our vision for the community and art practice is met in that sense. I think from the ethics point of view, like we want to pay the artists, we want to support cultural workers, and we want to be able to buy dinner for everyone at the end of each project, right? So all that takes money, and so money is a big issue. But how can we work with what we got and still make it what it is? I think that's my attitude towards it.
I don't know if Uzu would also like to say something about funding. Another thing that I really took away from all of your presentation was actually this really personal engagement, both with the community and the artists, people that were involved in like the whole process, and how this kind of relationship actually goes beyond the framework of a project as well, and how these relationships last. And Fiona and you also mentioned like that there's a lot of unexpected kind of results coming out of this first curatorial project, and then these relationships actually also support you and continuing what you are doing now. And I guess that also ties into one of the question, which is more for you, what is the line between publicized art for display? So for example, at one point you kind of present like your curatorial project in an exhibition space, or also Hoi, there's like a residency presentation maybe in the end for the project. But what is the line between these public display and the private conversation that you had with these communities? Because how do you kind of know at one point, or for the artist, what is the moment where it can be shared, or how do you kind of define that line, what is not to be shared, or what keeps with yourself, and what is indeed actually important to share for a wider public, maybe because of the topics and issue that is actually very important or interesting for people to learn from.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think working on a sensitive issues such as migrant workers makes us very careful about how we initiate a conversation and make use of what we receive from the community. And when it comes to publicizing the art, we tend to do a lot of discussion and then a lot of work of like reinterpretation or artistic reinterpretation are made, meaning that we do not really publish directly the stories we collect, for example, from like street interviews. Rather, we would collect some keywords. For example, in our early stage, we would collect what's your keyword for love, and then a lot of feedback answers we got is, oh, love is sacrifice, and then there will be a lot of like stories unfold. But in the end, we did not publish those stories, those heartbroken stories that we could. It becomes like part of our experience or our knowledge, but when it comes to, for example, the exhibition or the public event, for example, the pop-up cocktail bar is based on the street interviews we got. But the way we did it is, instead of publishing the stories we collected, we used the keywords, for example, love is sacrifice or something, as like a name of the cocktail. And then we have the participant to choose a cocktail according to what cocktail names echo, like speak to them most. And then we get more stories. But again, we do not publish these stories. So, and when it comes to exhibition, there's also a lot of mediation. Like one of the artists was working on unregistered babies, babies that were born to the unlicensed migrant workers, which is like a really big issues in Taiwan. But the way she put the work is to make it into animation and then reinterpret the stories that she collected from her field work with a fairy tale, with a fairy tale story. So yeah.
Okay. Unfortunately, our time is up, but I guess during the break, everyone is welcome to continue the conversation. I would like to thank again all of you for the presentation and also your attention. Thank you.